He's a reigning defending NBA champion. He was on that Lakers squad last year. He knows how to run a team. He's a two-time champion. Experience and all of that stuff that comes with it, he's got that. Then you have to take into consideration the fact that because he's with the Clippers, how much did that potentially do to the Lakers, which is something we'll get into a little bit later, because you're talking about a guy that's incredibly familiar with the things that the Lakers like to do in order to be successful. So he's able to bring his already supreme intellect to the equation. But then when you combine that with his knowledge of what they want to do and how they want to do it, because he's been their teammates, you never know what kind of profound impact that could have. But ultimately, it all equals to this. There is no excuses, and it puts Kawhi Leonard in the line of fire. The pressure has mounted significantly. He wanted a point guard desperately. He's got a point guard. The Clippers have given him everything that he needs. It's on him. He wasn't the man in San Antonio, okay? Even though he was the man in Toronto to some degree, we all know what role Kyle Lowry and them played from a leadership perspective and the continuity and cohesion that they had available to them because they had been accustomed to playing with one another for years. Now it comes down to Kawhi Leonard, the face of this franchise, the man that they mortgaged the farm for. This is what it's all about, and it's on him. And I love it because this is when we're going to find out what this brother's made of. I'm not talking about points, Max. I'm not talking about his personal level of production. I'm talking about his ability as a leader to galvanize the pieces around him to make sure you get max potential or max production out of the parts that surround you. That's what leaders do. We're going to see whether or not Kawhi Leonard has that in him.
Well, we never claimed Kawhi Leonard was a leader, just playing basketball at his position. There are very few who've ever done it better than him. Two-way player. So the issue has not been Kawhi. The issue's been Paul George, who doesn't show up in the playoffs, period. Paul George goes from all-star plus regular season to starter plus in the playoffs. He goes down like a full notch. Kawhi doesn't. Kawhi's a two-time finals MVP. Kawhi was great last playoffs until Game 7. I agree with that. That was a choke job. But Paul George is the guy hitting the side of the backboard. Now, you pointed that out. Now, Rondo makes them better. I wouldn't say no excuses better. I would say better because they had to give up Lou Williams to get him. And it's too bad for the Clippers because the Clippers wanted to add Rondo in the offseason, but they couldn't make it work because Rondo wanted to go get paid. Of course, you want to go get your money. He got it. But now in order to bring him in, they had to exchange a piece. In the regular season, Lou Williams better than Rondo. And it's not like Lou Williams can't play under pressure. It's just that what this team needed, they're playing Kawhi sort of as a point forward. That's not really him. He's gotten much better at it, even this year than last year than the year before. He's gotten much better at it. But that's not him naturally. They needed a floor general who can organize their offense and a guy who can help Paul George when it matters most in the playoffs. They got that in Rondo, but they gave up one of the best sixth men ever. I mean, who perennially is in running for sixth man of the year in the history of the game as much as Lou Williams? They had to give that up. Mm-hmm. They got marginally better. Mm-hmm. Now, marginally better might be enough because they were knocking at the door as is. Mm-hmm. But let's not make it like, oh, now they got Rondo. They didn't have to give anything up. No excuses. Kawhi, he ain't there because Kawhi needs an excuse. He's there to help out the offense, and if anyone needs help on that team under pressure, it ain't Kawhi, it's Paul George.
Max, I want to say this about Lou Williams because I don't think you've picked this up. Do you know that he's averaged 7 less minutes a game this year than he did last year? Mm-hmm. He's shooting 4 less shots per game. This is a guy that he's a specialist as a scorer. When have you ever seen that happen unless something's going awry? He's averaging 4 less shots a game, 7 less minutes a game, 6 less points a game. And obviously the pickup of Luke Kennard has something to do with that to some degree, which is a move I did not like personally. I'm not sold on Luke Kennard on that level, not at the expense of a Lou Williams. And Lou Williams going to ATL, Lemon Pepper Lou, Magic City. I mean, they got advertisements up there right now. We all understand that. I ain't mad at them. But I will tell you this. At the end of the day, we can't ignore, at some point in time, this is why and I'm going to confess this, Max Kellerman. It's your fault why Kawhi Leonard is receiving heat from this chair. Because when you changed your mind and had the Giannis, the Greek freak, as the best player in the world on a Thursday, and by that Monday, he was the 5th. Okay,
fluid.
You know, you talked about fluidless, right? You talked about Kawhi Leonard. And I recall us having conversations as to whether or not Kawhi Leonard was better than LeBron James because I tried to educate you about how false that was, right? But nevertheless, Kawhi Leonard had warranted all that consideration. And one of the elements that we brought up wasn't just numbers. It was leadership. It was responsibility. It was the pressure of having to produce. All of those things we brought up. And I'm saying right now is the most pressure that Kawhi Leonard has ever been on. Most pressure that he's now you can look at Philly, you can look at Toronto. But remember, when he got traded out of Toronto, that was about him wanting to leave San Antonio. So when he goes to Toronto, you knew what Masai was trying to do when he decided to depart with DeMar DeRozan in favor of Kawhi Leonard. We get all of that, Max, because he went for it, and we understand that. But what I'm saying to you is that they're in Canada. He really just wanted to depart from San Antonio. He really wanted to go from San Antonio to L.A., and the Spurs would not be cooperative, so they shipped him out of the country, and we got that. The point that I'm trying to make is that even though from a basketball perspective, you looked at Toronto and you said they got a shot, there was a debate as to whether or not they would have beaten Philly in that series, even though it went 7 games.
And
there was
what
a debate
happened?
about that.
Why'd they beat him?
No, they did him. Kawhi Leonard with
Hit one of the greatest shots of all time.
Who traveled before he took the shot. But
nevertheless,
okay.
Jordan pushed off.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I disagree. I don't recall seeing a push-off on Jordan. I don't recall seeing a push-off. I'm just saying, you can look at Kawhi Leonard right now, and you can make a legitimate argument. This is the first time he has been on this spotlight from the standpoint of, all right, what you going to do now?
Yeah, but here's the problem.
It's your show now.
Here's the problem.
It's your show.
Here's the problem with what you're saying. He's a 2-time Finals MVP, not one 2-time. Now, the second time was in Toronto, and you correctly point out that if KD wasn't hurt, of course, Golden State crushes them.
Sweet.
But by the way, if KD's not hurt, Golden State crushes everybody ever. Like, that team was unstoppable.
So he's one of the ones that he would have crushed.
So you talk about injuries. So now you're saying, well, now it's on Kawhi, even though he's a 2-time Finals MVP, twice. Okay. You know what they say? In nature, twice can be coincidence, 3 times is pattern.
Okay.
Here's the thing.
We ain't hit pattern yet.
If he does it again, you know what I'm going to hear from you next year?
Not a word. Not a word.
Here's what I'm going to hear.
Not a word.
Oh, AD is coming off injury. Oh, KD was compromised.
No.
What's the difference?
Completely false. Nice try, though, but completely false. Here's why. Max Kellerman, look at the Western Conference. You got Denver. You got Utah. We're getting into all of this as the show progresses. You got Denver. You got Utah. You got Portland. All right. The Lakers are expecting AD and LeBron to come back. LeBron's going to be fine.
You're not expecting AD back 100%.
I am. You're absolutely right. I'm worried about AD, but I ain't worried about LeBron at all. LeBron's just rested. He's chilling. He deserves it. Take a month off. No problem. Okay. Then we go to the Eastern Conference. Now you only got to face one of them if you're coming out of the West. That's true, but it's still Milwaukee. It's still Philadelphia. It's still Miami and obviously Brooklyn. And so when I look at it from that perspective, whoever comes out of the East is going to be incredibly formidable. It's not a given that the West is going to win the chip. And because of that reality at all, the bottom line is that I'm not going to say that about Kawhi.
You're holding it against Kawhi that he's not as good a GM as LeBron, basically. Forget about leadership.
No.
Kawhi made them go after
that's
Paul.
You.
Hold up.
You talk about GM. I'm
go
talking
after
leadership.
Paul George. And Paul George, as a second banana, has not been good enough without a third guy there.
I am not absolving Paul George. I am not saying that Paul George doesn't need to step up his game in the postseason.
Right.
What I'm saying is that he shouldn't be more the focal point than Kawhi.
Put it this way.
That's what I'm saying.
Put it this way. Kawhi, because he's not a point guard, not a point forward like LeBron, right? Kawhi needs a dude like that. He's got it in Rondo.
He could be.
He's got it in Rondo. He needs
Kawhi can pass, he can handle, he can shoot.
The reason
he can post up, he can do it all.
The reason they're not favored is because Paul George ain't AD. He's not AD. He's not KD. He's not James Harden. He is a half step below. That's why.
Max,
let's be honest.
You're not listening, Max, because I didn't say Kawhi in championship. I said, what have I said Kawhi owes us?
Western Conference Finals.
What did I say? No. I said he owes us a matchup against LeBron.
Right, I agree with that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
In other words,
if that's the standard, he's got to get to a matchup with LeBron.
Get to that point. Let's find out. You came to L.A. You dangled yourself as the champion with the crown hanging from your mirror. You said it's a new king.
No argument
all right?
there.
And LeBron was waiting for him, and they folded with a 3-1
argument there. As long as you're not talking chip or bust.
I'm not talking chip.
When LeBron got AD and KD got Harden and Kyrie.
I will say Western Conference. I will say Western Conference champions, and I will say
don't have their legs in the fourth quarter because they're asked to do something that they're not used to doing, and that's being playmakers, bringing the ball up the floor, getting guys in sets. That's not what they do. They get buckets, and on the defensive end, they lock you up. Now adding Rajon Rondo takes pressure off of everyone. Kawhi, PG, Ty Lue, everyone. He is the ultimate leader. You need that guy in that locker room. Just remember, right? We all thought last year, and I'm not taking anything from Kyle Kuzma with the Lakers. We thought that it was Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Kyle Kuzma as a mini big three. Well, it turned out to be Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Rajon Rondo when it mattered the most. Rajon Rondo is the one that stepped up in the finals and delivered in great fashion. So we all know what he's capable of doing. He's one of the best floor generals that this game has saw, and the Clippers definitely upgraded by acquiring him yesterday before the trade deadline. So the Clippers right now rank number 1 in the Western Conference.
I agree with everything you just said about Rondo. He is not just by reputation, but in fact an all-star when it matters most in the playoffs. And that gives him 3 all-stars when it matters most. It'll probably also help Paul George, who needs the help under pressure, and not make Kawhi into something he's really not, point forward. That's not really him. They also still have Batum and Patrick Beverley and Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris and Serge Ibaka. They got a crew, but what they don't have, Perk, they don't have Lou Williams anymore. And in the offseason, if they could have just signed Rondo, they have him and Lou Williams. That's one thing. But the addition of Rondo, don't you have to subtract Lou Williams now, who can go get you a bucket when you need it most?
No, because Lou Will wasn't playing well. He was playing up and down this season, and you could tell in the energy that kind of, in my opinion, from watching the Clippers, that Lou Will and the Clippers have ran this course. Like, you could plug Reggie Jackson into that role, and he could be a guy that come off the bench and give you 15 a night. I was with Reggie. I watched him step up when we was in Oklahoma City as a young gun. He stepped up and came in off the bench when everybody was wondering, when we traded James Harden, who was going to be that third option. I watched Reggie Jackson do that. So you put Reggie Jackson in the role, he's capable of coming in and giving you that 15 points a night. By the way, Max, listen. Ty Lue is bringing Marcus Morris off the bench. You know why? He's kind of putting him in the 6-man role. So we have to remember, he's coming in and being aggressive. Nicholas Batum is the guy that's in the starting lineup. So they have enough depth, in my opinion, coming in off the bench to make up for the for the missing of Lou Will now that he's gone.
Well, first of all, I don't have a problem with Lou Williams being gone in this respect. I know the brother can play. But let's understand a couple of things. Number one, he hasn't been the same since Doc Rivers departed. Playing for Ty Lue is a little bit different for him than playing for Doc Rivers. We know that. I think the acquisition of Luke Kennard hurt him. Now, Luke Kennard's only giving you about 19 minutes a game, okay? Only averaging about 7 points a game. But when you look at what they were looking for from him, if you're Lou Williams, you're saying, what the hell did you need him for while I was here? Especially when Lou Williams is in the last year of a contract, is paying him $8 million, and this brother, Luke Kennard, starts getting paid a minimum of $13 million starting next year. He got a 4-year, $50+ million deal on the books. Lou Williams is making $8 million a year. And so when you take that into consideration and you look at the fact that last year, coming into the postseason, what the expectations were. Not only was their bubble play compromised because of COVID-19, but then you got yourself into a tizzy because you had to go back to Atlanta for a funeral and found your way at Magic City ordering lemon pepper wings. And so that became the headline, which was very, very embarrassing, okay? So then you come back and you play.
Where the lemon pepper wings are now.
Listen, I ain't hating on them. I like lemon pepper wings. I like them. And damn it, I'll confess, I've been to Magic City before, damn it. Long time ago, but I've been there. I understand. Here's the deal, though. In the end, him going there at that particular moment in time reeked of irresponsibility. He got a lot of criticism for it. When you watched him play, he hasn't really been the same since. Then you take into account what happened in the bubble when they had a 3-1 lead and they blew it to Denver. So all of these things have compromised his cachet and the possibility of him getting the kind of new deal we all know he richly deserves. And then you bring in Luke Kennard on top of all of that. Yep. So I think that with Lou Williams, there's been an absence of inspiration. I don't think his skills, KP, have diminished that drastically. I just think there are some people that just need a new environment, a new place to go.
Well, and
I think he needed that, and that's why he's Atlanta.
The Reggie Jackson point is good. I think also Batum's career resurgence. He's had a renaissance in his career.
I'm going to warn you. if you're going to bring up Nicholas Batum, Jordan or anybody in Charlotte, because
right.
I'm telling you that right
money
now.
and he took the money and that was it.
Listen, Jordan doesn't speak about this. He wouldn't even talk to me about it, but I'm here to tell you something right now. It ain't no accident that you used to see Jordan on the bench, and then once Nicholas Batum arrived and stole all his money, you didn't see Jordan on the bench because he was scared he'd do something to him, because he felt like he got robbed.
He robbed him.
That Nicholas Batum, so it's kind of hard.
But that's not that Nicholas Batum anymore.
Not now.
This is more like the Nicholas Batum who got the before he got the money.
We'll see come playoff time, but my God, you talk about highway robbery. That man, he didn't just rob the Hornets, he robbed the city of Charlotte.
He retired.
He should have been arrested.
He's actually coming out of retirement right now.
Robbed him of money.
But that's signed the deal and retired from basketball for a couple years.
That's what I'm saying. You can't even bring him up around Michael Jordan. Can't even bring him up.
But he's back now. And you look at like the rotation. To your point about not needing Lou Williams as much, if you have Rondo and PG-13 and Kawhi and Ibaka and Morris and Batum and Beverly and Reggie Jackson, you got enough.
Go ahead, KP.
And Big Zubac. But here's the thing:
right, Zubac.
if they could have kept Lou Will, they probably would have. But once again, in order to make the trade work, the salaries got to match up, right? Rajon Rondo making around $8 or $9 million a year. So the Clippers had to do what's best to get them over the hump. And again, I'm not saying that this is a fact. This is my own opinion. But Kawhi Leonard has a player option at the end of this year. We don't know what he's going to do. So at the end of the day, the Clippers got to make sure that they put themselves in the best position possible to win a championship around Kawhi, so they can make sure that he's signed back, whether it's next season or whatever, and for the long haul. So the Clippers got to make sure they do everything to try to win the championship this year, or at least make it to the finals.
Well, they have a very well-constructed team now.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And just as an aside, fellas, Nicholas Batum, remember in 2016, I had to look this up, signed with Charlotte, 5 years, $120 million, and proceeded to average 15, 11, 9, and 3.
Oh, you're going year by year points. I'm like 15, 11, and 9. That's awesome.
No, 15, 11, 9, and 3.
Year by year by year. How much money he makes per basket, right?
We call Charlotte the Bible Belt, okay? Because you got a lot of folks out there that got God in their life or whatever, and they pray that Nicholas Batum never come back. That's what it is.
But on this team, he's a great fit.
8 points. He's shooting 43% from three-point range, only averaging 8 points a game. The bottom line is you do see a resurgence from